When we think about all the things that it means to be in a relationship with God, a relationship with His church, we understand the importance of being able to lean upon each other, to be present for each other. And as we think about those things today, and think about those things in good times and in bad times, we're reminded of what it means to be a child of God. We're reminded of what it means to be in relationship with Him and with His church. Let's pray. Father God, we come before you today, knowing full well, God, that you provide for us every day. And God, there are days that we need those provisions even more. God, there are days where life is a struggle. And so, God, we need that constant reminder of your presence, your love, your care, your attention to detail. God, as we know you and as we come to know you more, may we always be aware that you are our everything. And all that we have comes from you. And everything that comes from you is good. That is the only kind of blessings that you can pour in. So we thank you. It's in your Son's name we pray. In James chapter 1, the reminder to us as Christians is that although we may have a lot to say, what we need to ask ourselves is what we are saying, is that what God has placed within us, what God leads us to say? Does that speak love? Does that speak care? Does it speak grace, mercy, forgiveness? And, I often go to the book of James as one that I enjoy and one that I really struggle with because in many ways it mirrors the battles that I have. Sometimes when you're in a profession where you talk for a living, you feel that when people come to you or people ask you to come to them, that you need to have the answers to say, right? You need to come up with something to say in the moment. And what we realize is that's not always the case. That sometimes when we sit quietly and hear God speak to us, speak to our hearts, speak to our minds, what that leads us to know, because sometimes what happens is that when we react in the moment, when we react in the midst of chaos, sometimes what we can do is produce more chaos. Sometimes what we can do is expedite the process in the sense, is that person really going to be upset? Sometimes we can just add to the moment. And when we think about, just even think about in the Old Testament times. What I remember when we studied at Sunset was this cycle of sin that they went through. That you had a king that would trust in God and lead the people to trust in God, and then somewhere along the way they would get off course. And they would turn to idols, and they would turn away from God. And then you had a king that would continue to lead them in that. And then coming back around, you'd have a king that would come in that would turn the people back to God. And this process continued to go on and on. And you see, sometimes what we need to understand is that in the midst of our words, in the midst of our actions, the power that they can hold upon us, upon our family, upon our friends, upon our loved ones, that we may not always realize that. Now, some of you may be wondering, okay, well, what's behind all this? Right? Is there some, sometimes, when the preacher gets up and preaches a sermon, they think, there's something going on. Well, I don't know about you, but spent the last few days around family. And we think about that family environment and that time that you spend with one another. And we went to my uncle's house in Brownwood is where we ended up, where there was about 55 of us there. I thought, good gracious. Of course, he has a big house where he lives. And we were all in like 3 different rooms kind of thing. And, sometimes when family comes together, you have different personalities, different ways of looking at things, different conversations that lead to different responses and all these things. But in the end, in the midst of it all, what we understand is we are what? We're family. My challenge to you is to understand that within God's family, we bring those same things to the table. We bring those same conversations where we have differing opinions, right? Where we have things that we look at in one way, or as we looked at a few weeks back, your perspective means everything of how you respond in moments. But in the end of it all, we're what? Family. I love this quote that I found from Will Rogers. It says, "People who fly into rage always make a bad landing." If in the midst of it all, if in the midst of how we respond maybe to the way somebody treats us, or in our opinion mistreats us, when we fly into a rage, we always make a bad landing. And so what I want to encourage you with is this, from Ecclesiastes 7 verse 9. It says, "Do not be quickly provoked in your spirit, for anger resides in the lap of fools." Now, that doesn't mean that we can't have disagreements with one another. That doesn't mean that we just have to agree on everything, and we have to come to one common answer on every single detail of our lives. Because let's be honest, I know that's not possible. It's not even possible within our own household. Right. Got backed up a little. And so when we think about that, when we understand that, at the end is our goal to understand the love that we have for one another. At the end of it all, are we understanding that we're family? Because our speech has an enormous influence, right? The way we speak about each other, the way we speak to each other, has an enormous influence. And that influence is for good or for bad. I'll not be the first to tell you, some of you may already know this. Sometimes I put my foot in my mouth. And I know I'm alone in that. Insert sarcasm here, right? We all find ourselves in those moments. And that's where I always go back to James chapter 1. Slow to speak. If I would have just been slow to speak, if I would have just listened, if I would have just allowed God to speak, instead of me filling in the silence. Author Duffy Robbins wrote a book a while back. The title was "Enjoy the Silence." And it was all centered on the fact of listening to God speak and listening to God give us direction. Because sometimes when our conversations lead into an unhealthy way, it affects the family. And more so, it infects. And now, I understand. I've had conversations with people in numerous offices. Well, yeah, but that's not what I meant. And And they shouldn't take it that way. And I'd look and smile. Say that over about 3 or 4 times and see if you believe it. The words we say have an enormous influence, for good or for bad. So, how do we respond to this? Proverbs 15 verse 2 says, "The tongue of the wise adorns knowledge, but the mouth of a fool gushes folly." Good or bad? Where does our speech lead? So how do we respond to this? We speak love. That caring commitment in which affection and delight are shown to others. That caring commitment that understands that there are times in our life where we need the love of God that much more. There are times in our life when we need the love of our friends, of our families, of our neighbors, however you want to look at it. When we need it that much more. And we need that caring commitment from one another. We need that presence from one another. And then we look at this, it says, this is more shown in His words and action, and supremely in the death of Jesus on the cross. That act of love for us. And we think about this, how this exists within the love of God, the love of Jesus. Love in the Holy Spirit, the nature of love. Love for God, love for one another, love within relationships. Love for enemies. Love for the world. So we speak love. We also speak care, that, as it's defined, that practical outworking of vigilant love. I love that. That practical outworking of vigilant love, its efforts and its tenderness. Care in many ways is much like love. John 15:12 says, "My command is this, to love each other as I have loved you." Have that vigilant care, that vigilant concern, that vigilant love for one another. Because ultimately, in the end, we're a family. And families need to be able to lean upon each other. We also speak patience, that quality of forbearance and self-control. We are called to be patient with one another. We are called to be patient in our relationship. We think of God's patience with us. Of how God desires for us to be in that holy relationship with Him, and that when we fall short of that His patience in constantly being a presence in our lives and leading to be assured of His hope. The patience that's in Jesus Christ, the patience that is a part of the fruit of the Spirit, right? That love, joy, peace. We won't sing the song, I'll spare it. But we understand that patience is not just something that we offer. It's who we are. And as family, in the midst of those moments, this is what we offer. We also speak mercy, a quality of compassion. A quality, compassion, expressed in God's forgiveness of our sin, right? That how God forgave us, how God offered us His mercy, how God offers us these things. And so we think of the nature of who God is and how He demonstrated His mercy, how He demonstrated those things upon us, that quality that He offered us, that when we get in our own way, that God, through His mercy, helps us get back on the right track, helps us to come to know Him better. We speak grace, the unmerited favor of God. That grace is not just something that we offer before a meal. Grace is not just a prayer. Grace is what God has given to us when we did not deserve it. Grace is what God pours out upon us, seen clearly in the cross. Seen clearly in the opportunities that we have every day to live out the fullness of Him. And we are to share that grace with others. That, as the saying goes, people who have received grace offer grace. People who have received mercy offer mercy. Well, next we'll understand that people who have been forgiven receive forgiveness. You see, God's forgiveness of us should lead us to forgive others. God's forgiveness that He pours upon us should lead us to live and function in a way with our friends, with our family, in a way that offers them forgiveness. Now don't get me wrong. Forgiveness does not take away accountability. I understand that. We shouldn't just forgive people and let them run over us. Okay? I've had moments in my life where I've offered forgiveness, but I've made a choice not to be in the type of relationship with the person that I was before that happened. And that doesn't mean you say, well, now, did you truly forgive them? Yes, I forgive them. Because what we understand is our ability to receive forgiveness is dependent upon our ability to give forgiveness. Now, sometimes we look at that and say, well, that's not fair. That's not fair because you don't know what they did, and I'm not sure they really are deserving of forgiveness. That's not up for us to decide. Forgiven people who are loved, we care for. We offer mercy. We offer grace. Because that's what families do. Yes, I know sometimes my family can be much like yours, where that word dysfunctional shows up. Where those things that happen that can tear families apart, or those things that happen that you wonder, I don't know if we're going to be able to get past this. Well, an understanding of offering forgiveness is praying. Praying for your ability to forgive. Praying for their ability to forgive. Because man's anger does not bring about the righteous life that God desires. And we're family. Families are there for each other. Families care for each other. We're concerned. Families understand how we need to act. Sometimes after the fact. But understand. We're there for each other. So my challenge to you today, my encouragement to you is this. That when we look at those things that divide us, we look at those things that we struggle with, I want you to look in the midst of those moments and see what matters most. Now, I understand some of you have some big things. I get that. Some of you have some things that are going to take some time. I want to challenge you to start the process. You know, we've mentioned, and I'll close with this. We've mentioned time and time again our shut-ins who don't always have the opportunity to be with family at this time of year, that have things that are going on that They're separated from family. When we have the opportunity ourselves to be there, when we have the opportunity ourselves to be present, to offer forgiveness, to offer mercy, to offer grace, to offer love, to offer care, we understand what God's done. We understand what it means to be family. And I don't know, I guess as the phrase goes, that absence makes the heart go further. Sometimes I wonder how true that is. But I want you to know that while we have the opportunity, I want you to know that I love each and every one. And I know not all of you agree with me on everything that I say, and that's okay. It's okay if you're not right. Just seeing your paying attention. It's okay. Because in the end, we're family. And I'll always be here. I'll always be available as best as I can. And I know I can say the same thing for Jason as well, and for our elders and for our deacons. We would not take this call if we were not willing to live up to all the expectations of God. Our goal as leaders in this church is for us to be a functional family. So if we haven't lived up to that in every way, well, let's work together. Let's work together to be the body of Christ, as God has called us to be, as God has raised us up to be, and as He's still calling and raising us up to be. Let's be the church, so that when the world sees us, when the world sees how we treat each other, how we are there for each other in the midst of trials, that when the world sees that, they will glorify God, and they will want to be a part of a family like that, that they will know God in every way, that they will see Him for who He truly is, that they will see His people offering what has been offered to them. May the world see a new kind of family, church. May the world see a new way of living, church. May the world see God through us. Let's pray. Father God, we come before you today, seeking God to be your church, seeking God to be in relationship with you, in relationship with one another, God, in the way that you have called your church to be. And God, if there are things that get in the way of that, God, may we find what needs to happen, God, to work through those things so that we can live and we can offer this community and the surrounding communities, God, the world, what the world needs. Because, God, people need you. May we be that instrument of peace, that instrument of truth, of righteousness. May we be up to the challenge. And may we know that you working through us, we can win. For we already have victory in you. It's in your Son's name we pray. Today we want to offer you the opportunity to receive all those things that we talked about this morning that God gives us. Maybe receive it because you've never truly taken those steps and gone to the waters of baptism and said those words that you do believe in Him and go down into the waters and come out a new creation. Maybe you haven't done that. Maybe you have, but life is a struggle. I understand. I don't know exactly what all you're going through, but God does, and prayer is amazing. So if we can help you anyway, please come.